Thank you so much for joining us for this evening's program. Our topic is Sadhu Sanga. Before we start, I want to just check with everyone, is the light okay? Or is it a bit much for you? It's a bit much?
Yeah.
Can we turn it a little bit? Yeah. Maybe, whatever. Is that okay with everyone? Okay. His Holiness Radhanath Maharaj said, that which we associate ourselves with, we become like that. So I thought about how important Sangha is, and we're going to look at why Sangha is so important and how we know who we should be associating with and what we should be associating with and how, because we're living in a world where we're so much bombarded by these things, by the internet, by the news, and we're actually associating with everything there. Whenever we're walking around, whatever we're doing, we're always intaking what we're seeing and who we're speaking to. It has an effect on our consciousness, and it has an impact on our consciousness, and that impacts the way we behave, the way we interact with other people. So as practitioners of a spiritual path, we want to try and understand that association is so important, and associating with people who can help us to actually come to the platform of loving God, that is vital. That is so vital. But before we actually start, let's offer some prayers to our spiritual masters. Om Jnanatimirandasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshur Militam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Shri Chaitanya Manobhishtam Stapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamayam Dadati Swapadantikam Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Utaparakamalam Shri Gurun Vaishnavamscha Shri Rupam Sagrajatam Sahagana Raghunatam Vitam Tam Sajivam Sadvitam Sadvidutam Parijana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padam Sahagana Lalita Shri Vishakam Vitamscha Hey Krishna Karuna Sindhu Dinabandhu Jagatpate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostute Tapta Kanchana Gaurangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Vrishabhanu Sute Devi Pranamami Haripriye Vanchakalpa Tarubhyascha Kripa Sindhubhyaivacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shivasari Gaur Bhaktivinoda Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Okay, so let's take a look at today's topic in a little more detail. I want to begin with a pastime about Kalia's previous life. It's not one that is very well known, so it's one of my favorites. So Kalia, we know, was a serpent in Vrindavan who had many heads, and he poisoned the Yamuna river. And when Krishna went there, he found that his friends had all fainted because of this poison that was emanating from the Yamuna river. And then Krishna, he wanders into the Yamuna river, and his mother is so afraid. She's trying to stop him, and she faints, and everyone has fainted. And then Krishna starts dancing on his head, and he purifies this demon, Kalia. But how is it that this demon was so fortunate? I mean, does Krishna dance on our head? Who gets to have Krishna dancing on his head. This demon was not an ordinary person. So let's look at why it is he was so fortunate to have Krishna, the God of the supreme personality of Godhead, the Lord of the universe, dance on his head. So Kalia in his previous life was actually a king, and he was a devotee, and he was a very pious person. But he had some health difficulties. He had a stomach problem, and Narada Muni came to visit him one day and noticed that the king kept dismissing himself. He kept asking to be excused and going and then coming back and leaving, coming back. And Narada Muni thought this is very strange behavior. So he asked the king, is something wrong? And the king confided in him and explained that actually, yes, I have a really bad stomach problem. And then Narada Muni said, don't worry, there is a solution to this problem. Do you see the Kalinga bird over there? All you have to do is go to the bird, and you have to personally kill that bird and drink his blood. And then you will be forever cured of your disease. So the king, he tried to catch this Kalinga bird, but he couldn't because the bird was very intelligent. So there was a sage who suggested that if you dress as a sadhu, as a very peaceful devotee who is just going to meditate in the forest, then the birds, they won't run away from you because as a king, they suspect that you will come and hunt them. So then he does take this advice and he dresses in the guise of a sadhu who is just going to meditate. And in doing so, he was able to actually catch that Kalinga bird. But then he was looking into the eyes of that bird and he thought, no, how can I kill this innocent creature? How can I do that? No, I can't do that. So he decided, no, he's not going to kill this Kalinga bird. And the bird could understand the heart of the king. So he spoke to the king and he said, don't worry, I have another solution for you. Do you see that great devotee over there, that sadhu? All you have to do is go to that great sage and ask him to wash his lotus feet and then drink the water. So then the king does as he is instructed by the bird, and he says, "O great devotee, I've been instructed to wash your feet and to drink the water because that will cure me of my disease, which has been with me for so long." And so the devotee agrees. But then the king, he washes one of the feet of this devotee, and he sees that it's all diseased, so all this blood is coming out and all this pus is coming out, so he thinks, no, I can't drink this water, it's not possible for me. Actually, can I wash your other foot? And he thought it must be better. But then he took the other foot, and it was worse than the first foot. So he looked at the water, and he thought, I can't disrespect this great sage, so I will sprinkle some of this water on my head, just to honor the water, but I can't actually drink this water. That's what he was thinking. And so then we see that in his next life, he takes birth as a huge serpent. He was a great devotee, actually, he was a king. And because he didn't have full faith in the lotus feet of a devotee, of a pure devotee, because of that, he had to accept the body of a serpent. And because his head was so much sanctified by the touch of that water on the lotus feet of that devotee, Krishna felt inclined to personally dance there. So wherever a pure devotee actually places their lotus feet, Krishna himself goes with them. That's what we can see from that. And we can even see that in the case of Srila Prabhupada and all of our spiritual masters and all of the devotees who are constantly chanting the names of the Lord. Wherever they go, Krishna is coming with them. He's dancing with them because they're always chanting. and they're always keeping Krishna within their hearts. And actually, such a place, wherever Krishna and a pure devotee resides, is known as a tirtha, a sacred place. So those personalities, those pure devotees who are constantly meditating on Krishna and keeping Krishna within their hearts, they are themselves actually places of pilgrimage, and wherever they go, wherever they place their lotus feet, is also known actually as a place of pilgrimage. Like, for example, Srila Prabhupada, when he went to America, which is definitely not considered a place of pilgrimage in general, wherever he went in America is now a place where devotees, many devotees will go and see, because this is a place where a pure devotee has stood. And even here, actually, Srila Prabhupada came to the campus here. I don't know where exactly. Do you know where? Where? What is it called? G2. He was right there in G2. So that's a holy place. That's a place of pilgrimage, because a saintly person has placed his feet there. And my spiritual master in his kitchen has a picture of Srila Prabhupada walking along the Durban beachfront, and one of his disciples actually found that exact place where that picture was taken, and now in that place there's a little pool of water, we're swimming in, so I called it Prabhupada Kund because we have kunds for sacred places. So these places are actually sanctified by the lotus feet of a devotee, and actually it's even described that those places which are sacred become a little overburdened themselves by all of the people who come there to unburden themselves of their sins, like when they go to the Yamuna or the Ganges. They're going to purify themselves, but they're putting their sins into the river, and the rivers feel themselves quite burdened. But when the lotus feet of a pure devotee steps inside that same place, it becomes again pure. It relieves these sacred places of their burden and purifies that place once more. So this is the power of association, and there's this beautiful verse. Sadhu Sanga, Sarva Shastre Koi, Lava Matra Sadhu Sanga, Sarva Siddhi Hoi. The verdict of all revealed scriptures is that by even a moment's association with the pure devotee, one can attain all success. Just one moment, all success. And there's another verse which explains that those great sages who have completely taken shelter of the lotus feet of the Lord can at once sanctify those who come in touch with them, whereas the water of the Ganges can sanctify only after prolonged use. So many people, they may go to these sacred places with the idea that they're going to purify themselves, but we should understand that actually just by associating with a pure devotee who is themselves a sacred place, we're also then purifying ourselves, even more so than if we just try to go ourselves to visit places of pilgrimages, and it's also described that we really miss the point if we go to a place and think, I'm just going to visit this temple, and not consider that there are saintly people who live here. So that's actually a neophyte mentality, to think that my spiritual life is just between me and Krishna and nobody else. So that's not really the mood of a practitioner of bhakti. The mood is that it's me and Krishna and all of Krishna's devotees. Because when we're chanting Krishna's name, who's with Krishna? All of his devotees. When we're chanting Hare Krishna, Radharani is there, Mother Yashoda is there, Nanda Maharaj is there, Vrindavan is there, all of the residents of Vrindavan are there, everyone is there. So in chanting Krishna's names, it's not just Krishna, it's Krishna and his devotees. Yeah, and we really need to understand that it's the Sangha that's going to keep us going in our spiritual lives, because that's what really inspires us. It's what picks us up when we fall down, and it's what carries us forward when we can't move on our own. Because we can't pick ourselves up. If we're on the ground, we can't pick ourselves up. Think about a young child learning to walk, a 6-year-old child learning to walk, or maybe 4 years old. They'll fall down, and then mother or father has to pick them back up again, and then they can carry on with some help, and then they learn to walk on their own. But they'll fall down again and again. So we're all like little children in spiritual lives. We fall down again and again in many different ways to different degrees. And we really need our spiritual masters and the association of devotees to pick us back up, and dust us off and carry on. And we see in the case of Kali also that he associated with the Sadhu for just one moment. It was just a moment where he placed that water on his head. Just a moment. And even just that moment purified his head so much that Krishna came to dance there. Nectar of Devotion explains that when we associate with the flower-like devotees of the Lord, if our hearts are clean enough, like a crystal, then we begin to actually reflect the qualities of those devotees. But first, it is required that we clean our hearts a little. First, that is required. But still, even by associating with pure devotees, even if our hearts are not yet completely pure, still we are able to ourselves become purified. Nashtapriyasha Bhadreshu Nityam Bhagavata Sevaya Bhagavatirtama Shloke Bhaktir Bhaviti Naishtiki. By rendering of service to the pure devotee and by regularly attending classes of Bhagavatam, all that is troublesome to the heart is almost completely destroyed, and loving service to the Supreme Personality of Godhead is established as an irrevocable fact. So just by hearing from them, just by serving them, we get to love Krishna. So simple. And I was looking at the example of Narada Muni. He explains that once only by their permission, and he's talking about these sages who he was busy serving, I took the remnants of their food, and by doing so, all my sins were at once eradicated. Thus being engaged, I became purified in heart. And at that time, the very nature of the transcendentalist became attractive to me. So just by serving them and honoring their remnants, their prasadam remnants, he became at once purified. And then we saw that in his next life, he became the transcendental spaceman who's eternally traveling throughout the universe singing the glories of the Lord. So if we're actually sincere and if we actually want to make progress, then Krishna will give us the association we need to make progress, especially granting us our spiritual masters. Guru Krishna Prasade Pai Bhakti Lata Beach. The seed of devotional service is obtained by the mercy of Guru, the spiritual master, and Krishna, the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So Krishna, he gives us Guru. He sees, okay, this devotee is trying, so let me send my representative, let me send someone to help them in their process, let me send them the association they need. This is the system he's established, the parampara system. And then Guru teaches us how to get Krishna. So Krishna gives Guru and Guru gives Krishna. He teaches us how to chant Hare Krishna. And in doing so, attain the lotus feet of the Lord. And actually Krishna, he's more pleased when we serve his devotee than when we try to serve him. I mean, we don't know who Krishna is. we can speak about him. He's a little blue boy in Vrindavan, playing with the cows and the cart boys. But we don't really know Krishna. We don't really know Krishna. We don't really love him. Or rather, we do love him, but all that love in our hearts is completely covered by everything we think we are. And it's covered by all of the narratives, all of the bad qualities now. So we can't really understand who Krishna is. But by taking shelter in our spiritual masters, that covering of the heart can be cleansed away and we can start to see. So now we've spoken a little bit about why we want the association of sadhus or pure devotees. And now let's just ask the question, who is a pure devotee? How do we identify the devotees who we really want to spend time with to make progress? How do we know who they are? What do they look like? Well, there's one verse from the Bhagavad Gita, it's chapter 10, text 9. Machita matkata prana vodayanta parasparam katayantascha nityam tushanti cha ramanti cha. The thoughts of my pure devotees dwell in me, and they derive great satisfaction and bliss from always enlightening one another and conversing about me. So this is the nature of a person who actually has some taste for Krishna consciousness, or who has affection for the Lord. They're always thinking about Krishna, and you can tell that by what they speak, because Prabhupada explains that you can't speak about something you don't think about. And if you're always speaking about Krishna, it means you're always thinking about Krishna. So those devotees who actually have affection for Krishna are speaking about him all the time, because they're thinking about him all the time. Because unless we have some affection, we won't think about him all the time. Like we can even see in this world, if a boy and a girl love each other, then they think about each other all the time. But that's mundane. But the same is applicable in spiritual life. If we actually love Krishna, we'll think about him all the time. And then we would actually glorify him all the time and with one another. So that's what the pure devotee relishes. They enjoy the association of other devotees and speaking about the Lord with them, always enlightening one another. Because there's knowledge, and then there's more knowledge, and then there's more knowledge. There's endless amounts of knowledge on Krishna. There's endless amounts of ways in which we can understand who Krishna is and how we can love him. It's not like there's an end to the amount we can love him, or an end to the amount we can understand how wonderful he is. So pure devotees are always engaged in glorifying him. Even Ananta Shesh, with all of his heads, can never fully glorify the Lord, because he's unlimited and his glories are unlimited. So the devotee relishes speaking about those unlimited glories of the Lord. So that's who a devotee is, always engaged in chanting the glories of the Lord and serving the lotus feet of the Lord. Okay, so we've spoken about why we want to associate with the devotees, who the devotee is, and now how do we actually stay connected to them? How do we stay connected to those devotees? Most important thing is by following their instructions. So this is especially in relation to Guru. And we can see how even some of Srila Prabhupada's disciples, they didn't meet Srila Prabhupada, but they explain how they feel so connected to him. And why? It's because they follow his instructions. And the very first instruction that we get is to chant Hare Krishna. My Guru Maharaj once said to one of his disciples while I was there that if you always chant, I will always be with you. So he was explaining that while he is chanting, if we are also chanting in this way, we will always be connected. And we can think about it like this. I was thinking about it. If we go to a place, okay, so we've all come here to this hall, and if someone else comes to the same place, someone else comes to the hall, then you will be together, right? It just makes sense. So when we're chanting, Vrindavan is there, Krishna is there, and if we're both chanting, then we're both coming to the same place. It's a transcendental place. It's not within our understanding of this world. It's a transcendental place, Vrindavan, and it resides within the heart. But if we are chanting and they are chanting, then we're coming to the same place. We're coming together to Krishna. And in that way, we're always connected. And then the very last point I just wanted to bring up is how such devotees, especially our spiritual masters, are so merciful. Devotional service is absolute, so we could be sweeping, we could be offering arti, whatever we do, it's on the absolute platform. Krishna accepts all of the service, no matter what it is, no matter how big or small it is. But the designation of our services in this world are temporary. So I could sweep the floor today, and tomorrow maybe I am doing Pujari service, and they look like different services. They look like that from our perspective in this world. It's a temporary designation. It's not necessarily what we actually do in the spiritual world, in our Swarup. But this service designation of being a spiritual master and assisting someone on their spiritual journey, as great devotees do, that's not a temporary designation. That's an eternal service. So Guru actually sees himself as being the greatest servant, and therefore he is most worshipable. He sees himself as being the greatest servant. Once, when Srila Prabhupada was giving a class on the different sectors of society, somebody said, "You probably think you're higher than all of the other sectors." And Prabhupada actually cried, and he said, No, I am lower than all of the others because I'm the servant of all of the others. The Guru is so merciful. And once we have tried to offer our hearts to our spiritual masters, once we've tried to offer our hearts to Krishna, to the process of devotional service, then Guru and Krishna never leave us. They always look after us. And there's a purport where Srila Prabhupada writes that actually the devotees of the Lord are even more merciful than the Lord himself, because they understand the purpose of the Lord and they're willing to undergo all kinds of risks just to help everyone come back to Krishna, to help everyone come closer to Krishna. And we can see that when Lord Chaitanya, the Lord himself, was with Lord Nityananda, and Jaga and Mare come and harm Lord Nityananda, then Lord Chaitanya was very upset, so much so that he was willing to kill the offenders. But Lord Nityananda was not upset. So the devotee of the Lord, he was very merciful. He said, "It's okay, Lord Chaitanya, you don't have to kill them." And he reminded Lord Chaitanya that the reason they came was to kill the demons within the hearts of the devotee rather than killing them externally. So in that case, we could see how the devotee of the Lord is so merciful, and our spiritual masters are representing them. And Srila Prabhupada also, he hardly ever rejected anyone. Even those sannyasis who left the movement for some time and got married and had children and came back, he didn't reject them. And when someone takes sannyas, they're not supposed to leave their ashram. It's the renounced order. But sometimes, the senses are very strong, and some devotees did do that. But Srila Prabhupada never rejected them. He just encouraged them. You've come so far, you just carry on, okay? You've got a wife and family, but just continue chanting. And he would always encourage them. So Srila Prabhupada is so merciful. When Lord Chaitanya's associates had, I was thinking of Chota Haridas, when he had glanced at a woman, he just glanced. It's not like he left his ashram. he just glanced at a woman, and in doing so, he was rejected. He couldn't associate with Lord Chaitanya anymore. So that's another example of how the devotee is more merciful. So Krishna, he's so sweet that he gives glory to these devotees. He lets his devotee be more merciful than him. That's how sweet Krishna is. And that's how wonderful his devotees are, that they're so surrendered, that they're willing to please Krishna by doing anything that they know will please him. So we can really try to take shelter of that first instruction of Guru and really try to chant the holy names. And then we'll always remain in the association of the devotees. And even when we're reading and chanting, they're not different. Then we'll be remaining in the association of the greatest devotees and with Krishna himself, because they're always all together. And in that association, we start to actually experience that there's happiness beyond just fleeting happiness, and there's magic in our lives beyond any dream that our imagination can conjure up. And Dhruva, he prays so nicely. He's just a 5-year-old boy, and he prays, "O unlimited Lord, kindly bless me so that I may associate with great devotees who engage in your transcendental loving service constantly, as the waves of a river constantly flow." Okay. I'll stop there. Hare Krishna. Are there any questions? There is one question. Haribol. It says, so many Krishna bhajans we will like to sing. Is it allowed? So the question is, there are many Krishna bhajans. Is it allowed? Are we allowed to sing them? Yes, absolutely. If we can spend our whole lives just glorifying the Lord by chanting different bhajans, that's perfect. There's nothing wrong with that. But of course, chanting the holy names is the most powerful way to connect, because everything is contained within his holy names. But we can understand that Krishna has many names, and there are other names within other bhajans as well, which glorify the Lord, which also have a purifying effect on the consciousness. All of Krishna's names. He has thousands and thousands and thousands of names. They're all purifying. So yes, bhajans are very wonderful. But the Maha Mantra contains in itself all the glories of all those bhajans. All the glorification of all those bhajans is within the holy names. Everything is within the holy names of the Lord, especially within that Maha Mantra. So it's perfect to glorify the Lord with bhajan, and it's more perfect to glorify the Lord by constantly chanting the Maha Mantra. I hope that's okay. Are there any other questions? I wonder if Gopali has any questions. You know, Gopali, Dhruva was just 5 years old, and he was praying to always be with devotees who chant Hare Krishna.
I'm 5.
And you are 5. Yes. Do you like being with the devotees, Gopali? Aren't they wonderful? Yeah. She's just 5, and she's always with the devotees. She's like Dhruva. Do you have any questions? You can think about it. Okay. Does anyone else have any questions? Yes.
Can you explain a bit about Gaura Purnima on Tuesday?
Yes, right.
What should we do on that day especially?
Gaura Purnima. So Gaura Purnima on Tuesday, it's the day that we celebrate when Lord Chaitanya appeared in this world just over 500 years ago. So Krishna, he's Atmaram, he is self-satisfied, he's in the highest ecstasy. But there is someone else who's even higher, who feels more ecstasy than the Lord himself, and that's Radharani, the devotee of the Lord. So Krishna, he couldn't understand, how is it that I am God, but she feels more bliss than I do just by serving me? I don't understand what she experiences. And because he wanted to get that experience, he decides to come as Lord Chaitanya, Gauranga. So he is Lord Krishna in the mood of Radharani. Yes, so Radharani, when she heard that Krishna was coming to appear in this world, she said, you won't be able to contain all that love that I have for you, so you'll fall to the ground and hurt yourself. I will come with you and I will cover you with my golden complexion. And that's why Lord Chaitanya is called Gauranga, because he is golden. And that's the golden complexion of Srimati Radharani. And it was Lord Advaita who was offering his deity water from the Ganges and tulsi leaves, and he was praying and praying, please, please, my Lord, please come. There are so many people here and they all need you. So because of his prayer, Lord Chaitanya did come, and he came when there was an eclipse and people were bathing in sacred rivers and they were calling out to the Lord, because it's supposed to be a very inauspicious time. Everybody was calling out to the Lord. So he decides to appear at that time, because he's showing that he appears when we're calling out to him. And he came not only to experience that mood of Radharani, but also to show us what the Yuga Dharma is and how to follow it. And what is the Yuga Dharma? It's chanting. What is the way in which we achieve self-realization in this particular age? It's the chanting of the holy names of the Lord. So he taught us Harinam Sankirtan. He gave us the process. And he taught us so many things, many, many things. So this is what we celebrate on Tuesday, and how we observe it is by chanting. That would be good. Chanting as much as possible. And better than just chanting by ourselves is going out on Harinam, going out and sharing chanting with everyone, which is what Lord Chaitanya did. And even wherever we are, we can do it. Wherever we are. Even if we're in a remote place. Hopefully we're not in a remote place, because you will go to work, so you can chant at work, at least in your hearts. But however we can, we'll try to chant as much as possible on that day, for the pleasure of our spiritual masters and Lord Chaitanya. Oh, that's okay. Is there anything else you can add to that? Anyone?
Very good.
Okay, any other questions or comments from anyone? Okay, thank you. Shri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu ki, Srila Prabhupada ki, Ananta Koti Vaishnava Vrinda ki, Gaur Premanande.